And speaking of information technology, you wrote another book, which you also have on the table here. Maybe we could take a look at that. It's called Information Proficiency. And what's the message that you're trying to get across in that book?
Okay, Marty, thanks for asking this. This book was written after my government service, and I really wanted people to think about the opportunities that they and society and everything in between, individuals through society, have in the information age. So this is a timeless book. It's out of print, but the message in it is really quite timely now. And it really is to, among other things, to start to think from a broader perspective, as we've talked about before, to start to think about outcomes that would really matter, and then to work your way into more specific things like what do we need to do and what plans might we have and what issues do we really need to resolve in order to get there. And somewhere far down on that list is actually questions of resources, including who should be involved and what technologies we might use and office space and all the other sorts of things that you really need. So I'm encouraging people, among other things, from time to time, not always, but from time to time, look at the big picture, plan downward, and also to recognize that success builds from the bottom up. You don't get very far if you don't have the people and other resources or somebody who can supply what those people would have supplied.
Now, information technology is really changing the world in unbelievable ways. It's changed the face of almost everything. Is there anything we can do to reduce the risk that something bad is going to happen from this excessive information that we're being bombarded with all the time?
The excessive information actually gives me an opportunity to talk about something else. When I joined the government, I found that GSA was in the middle of strategic planning. And so I inherited a draft mission statement for the group that I was starting to lead. And mercifully, it focused on an information-rich environment for federal employees. So it's beginning to speak toward the topic that you've just brought up. And I liked that because intuitively I knew that people could have come up with a mission statement that said, great telecommunications and computing products and services, which actually is the sort of the gist that GSA had for its overall mission statement for a broader set of services. But it took me about 1 second, and this was 1989, for my mind to flash from information-rich environment to potential information overload. So I recognized that, and I personally recrafted the vision for what we'd be doing, came up with the mission statement of information proficiency, focus on effective use of information to get things done, and images of proficiency with information to make decisions and set goals, proficiency through information to communicate and implement the decisions and get done something like what you might want. So I was very much into the type of question. These are going to be eternal questions. I would suggest if people are looking at the broad picture that actually information overload has been with us for a long, long time, but we're now beginning to see something else, and that is an overload of requests for information, surveys, and all sorts of other things directly or rather covertly in some sense, asking for information. I think people should broaden out the question you just asked and start to look not only at information overload, but at the taxing effects on individuals and society of direct or indirect requests to contribute information.
Or not even requests, they could just take it without your permission.
That's another facet
One of the
this.
problems of information overload is that you can't have secrets anymore. Everything you do can be tracked. Is that a problem?
My stock answer for all of these things is there are opportunities and there are problems.
Now, Tom, you've also spoken a lot about leadership and the need for good leadership. What's the relationship between leadership and innovation? Are good leaders necessarily good innovators, or are they totally different types of skills?
I think that all skills tend to overlap, and so there's no reason for people to think of these as distinct. In fact, I've taught a course called Leadership and Innovation before, and it's easy to blend the two. I think that leaders differ in styles. They differ in, there's a lot of similarities, go back to my theme, but there are differences in styles, there are differences in circumstances, there are differences in interests. So does a leader have to be directly an innovator? Maybe not, if they have a good crew around them and they catalyze a culture or sustain a culture in which innovation is expected and risks can be taken and so forth. The leader does not necessarily have to be known as a great innovator, but could be known as someone who fostered innovation and moved his or her organization forward that way.
Are there any particular traits that are essential for leaders? For example, having a clear vision of where you want to go and being able to convey it to others so they can buy into it themselves?
Yes, I think that getting a vision around, getting people participating in formulating visions and missions and so forth, and people taking advantage of that clarity is very important. At PG&E, we never had a goal for my project. It's maybe amazing to say that, but we did come up with 7 principles very early on, and we could market those principles. They had to do with doing work better and some other sort of common sense things. And then we could even make decisions. And indeed, once in a while, I got a request that had been signed off by an officer saying, I back this project. And I would look at the principles and say, this violates sufficiently badly, sufficiently much, one of the principles of the project. So I would overrule, unfortunately, that person's request and that officer's signature and say, no, you are not going to get your technology. We may want to rework this somehow, but this request is not going through. So I think that having a vision, having principles, if not goals, being able to operate that way, number one, makes it easier to make decisions, and number two, makes it easier for people to follow on from those decisions, and number three, encourages people to make decisions that are in the same spirit as the principles and other ideas that are behind the decisions and visions that you're announcing.
We just have about half a minute left. Where are you going to go from here? What are your plans now? Do you have the plans to take this whole approach anyplace?
I want coaches and other people to use this approach. I want partners in the coaching community, also in the software community, to develop this into enterprise and community software. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for societal, corporate, government, and individual benefit.
Great. And we are going to have to leave it right there because we are out of time. I've been speaking with Thomas J. Buckholtz, Innovation Catalyst. Tom, thanks for being here. A pleasure to have you.
Marty, thank you tremendously.
Thank you for watching. Visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, I'm Marty Wasserman. We'll see you next time.